This episode of Bend the Knee is brought to you by Lord Jason of House Ross, Lady Amanda of House Richardson, Lord Adam, the Young Bull of House Parker, Sir Peter of House Whittingham, the Ghost of Harrenhal, Lord Nelson of the Long Isle, the Mother of Cats, Sir Joshua of House Ross, Lady Kendall of House Taylor, Lady Liz of House Hendricks, Lord Hunter the Foul-Mouthed, Captain of the Guard, Sir Dustin the Rooster Knight, Captain of the Guard, Sir Ron of House Golson, Captain of the Guard, Lady Amanda, Captain of the Guard.
Hello and welcome to Bend the Knee, a Song of Ice and Fire podcast. I am Sir Matt, the Bud Knight.
And I am Sir Ezra, the Watchful. Welcome to our Song of Ice and Fire book club. Today we're into Chapter 58, Eddard 15 of A Game of Thrones, and we are fired up, my friend.
Yeah, some fire and blood, has just been, I don't know what it is. Sir Ezra, one of the things I think that a lot of people are experiencing right now is some Game of Thrones hangover.
Yeah.
There was 2 years of build up and even more for so many other people just waiting for season 8. And then season 8 came out, and I think a lot of people were just either disappointed or just emotionally drained from it. I know you and I kind of were.
Yeah.
And now that, we've been back into the books these past couple of weeks, and I'm going back and I'm listening to the audiobooks and I'm doing more research and I'm listening to Dunk and Egg and I'm listening to Fire and Blood. I'm listening to The World of Ice and Fire.
Come on.
I'm just starting to get back into it. And just the theories, the speculation that exists in the realm of the books that doesn't really exist in the show. Yeah,
exactly. I mean, last night when we recorded the first Show Watcher's Guide to the books, I was fired up. I mean, we were back explaining the differences, and I think it really just lit this fire in us to go do more research, to get back in. We're recording a Green Dream tonight, so I'm fired up, man. We're back in the books. I mean, we've got a Maester study pulled up. We've got Tourney at Harrenhal. We're back discussing the theories. It's great.
And one of the things we talked about as we started turning back towards the books, we've talked a lot about the ending of Game of Thrones, and is it going to be the same way in the books? Is it and this stuff? And the more we go back to the books, the more I say absolutely not.
Yeah. Yep.
I did a musing last week on Patreon, talking about the original outline that we saw and Game of Thrones and kind of what we've seen so far in A Song of Ice and Fire. And even if you go back to Gur's original outline, I think that there will be some similarities, but I think it's way different.
Agreed.
And
yep.
And so I'm just getting fired up because I'm with you. I think it's all going to be totally different.
Yeah.
And there's way more foreshadowing, way more magic, way more characters, just more.
Yeah. Well, so again, I go back to like last night, we were talking about Lady Stoneheart and just the difference there. So
she's not even in the show.
Yeah. I mean, back to her, Beric Dondarrion has laid down his life for her, supposedly. I keep hoping he's coming back, but I mean, maybe he took the place of her character in the show. You know what I mean? So maybe she's someone, people will have to go listen to that episode. That's our lowest tier, just $1 to go listen to that. We went on for almost 30 minutes talking about that stuff. So we can't help ourselves.
Yeah, Lady Stoneheart, Bloodraven, and Aegon Targaryen or Young Griff, and just how these characters who have major elements in the books that aren't in the show, and are they going to be blended some way? And we're actually going to do, that was just a brief kind of overview as to who those characters are. You and I are actually getting ready to record a Patreon episode after this where we go into deep theories about them, and that'll be much more immersive.
Absolutely. Yeah. Yep. So we're excited, man. Pumped. We got some collaborations we've been talking about. We've got some cool, channel news coming. Patreon's fired up. So there's just good stuff on the horizon. It feels good. So.
Yeah, I'm pumped.
Yeah.
So All right. So Ezra, let's go ahead and head on over to Small Council a little bit. How you doing, my friend?
Well, good. A couple updates here. I've kind of switched around the studio a bit. If it sounds a tidbit echoey, I'm gonna fix some of that. But I've got to fill the space in here in this new room that I'm in because I have relocated, kind of moved, and I'm setting up a really cool. I call it like a studio. I mean, it's up in this loft. It's sick. It's fantastic. I've got so much more room, so I'm pumped. I'm working on that, and because we've got a lot of projects that we do together, and so we just needed to upgrade a little bit, and we've been able to do that, which is fantastic. So yeah,
absolutely,
feeling great.
Yeah, I also will be doing a somewhat of a studio upgrade here in a couple weeks. I've told you off the air about some of the water issues I've been having here at the at the house, and so I have to have some guys come in and climb into the crawl space to do some quite a lot of renovations to
couple drowned priests
to that,
right?
Yeah, quite a bit down there. Unfortunately, I live in a bad spot on the water table here in Portland, but. So going to be doing that, but the crawl space just happens to be in the office where I record.
Yeah.
So I'm going to have to tear it all down, and I'll be tearing it all down. And when I come back from Ohio, because I'm flying out to Ohio for a couple days, kind of for my birthday, and Sir Ezra and I are actually going to be doing. We owe you guys a couple things. We owe you an archery contest, so we're gonna be doing that. It's gonna be a lot of fun. But when I come back, I'm gonna be piecing together the office, and so I've got a couple new things. I'm gonna set it up differently, possibly get some stuff to help out, drown out a little some of the echo in this room. This room fortunately is carpeted, so that doesn't really seem to cause a lot of issue, but just some more things, some minor upgrades.
Yeah, some tweaking. I do want to tell our listeners that when you first sent me, you told me you were having the troubles that you were having with the flooding. I just pictured you down there, what's dead may never die, baptizing him, either John the Baptist like or something. Sir Matt's down there. Oh my gosh, dude, that water issue, man. Jeez.
Yeah, it's a water issue. We had some electrical issues, like some slugs. There's
those
like a
don't
sump
mix.
pump down there,
Oh,
and some slugs crawled onto the outlet. And
dude.
Yeah,
Wow.
those slugs are definitely dead. They're not coming back. So,
dude, wow.
But yeah, so I was doing that. Actually, there was a day that we were recording, and I was like, man, the power keeps going out. I got to figure this out, and so.
Wow.
Ended up working out, but yeah. So anyway, so that's what's kind of going on in Sir Ezra and I's life.
Yeah.
If you guys want to follow us on social media, be sure to do so at Super Gainsbros is where you can find me. And Sir Ezra, where can people find you at?
Yeah.
On the internet.
Yeah, on the internet. I'm actually back on Instagram now and on Facebook and on Twitter. I had to take a little bit of a hiatus there, but I kept the Twitter active. So at Womperat_2M is where you can find me. I wish you good fortune in the wars to come. All right.
Yes, which does include the Star Wars. And as you guys know, as we've talked a little bit about, we have started a new podcast called Hyperspace Hangout. It is a Star Wars podcast. Be sure to check it out. But we're not here to talk Star Wars.
Right.
Sir Ezra, we're here to talk about Game of Thrones, or better yet, a Song of Ice and Fire.
That's right. That's what it is. The
Game of Thrones is over.
It's over. It's
although it is referenced in this chapter, and we'll get to that.
We're still in the first book, so
let's head over. Yes, let's head over to the Maester study, and today we're going to be talking very briefly about the attorney at Harrenhal.
Yeah, we are. So in the Maester study, I've really liked this. I think oftentimes, when George is doing in this first book especially, he's doing world building, right? So he makes these references to great tourneys or the Mad King or this group of Kingsguard that are not around anymore. And so to me, it's making a lot of sense to kind of, it's almost like a version of Cool Connections, which we do at the end of the chapter, just to do it beforehand and kind of talk about this tourney at Harrenhal that is a reference, because we'll find out later that Eddard is down in the Black Cells and starts to kind of, we know that he's drifted in and out of dreams, and he kind of recalls some of his time briefly at the tourney at Harrenhal, which is also known as Lord Went's Great Tournament. It was held in 281 AC, the year of the fall spring. So this is actually, it's kind of cool that this is working out the way that it is, because we believe that the tourney of Harrenhal is extremely important to understanding everything, pretty much the whole setup to this A Song of Ice and Fire series. What happened? What were the motivations for it? Were there some secret plots? All that kind of stuff, which we will be covering in our Patreon series. Really in depth, like a 4-parter, I think, is what we've got planned.
Yeah,
there.
we have a monstrous theory that we've found. I think it's really good. It's very, very deep. It provides just all the information you could ever want. It's going to be a 4-part series, and we're going to start this next month in July, and I think people are really, really going to enjoy it.
Yeah, and so for a teaser on that, I just thought I would mention a couple things here. So we talk about the Kingsguard. Jaime Lannister shows up in this chapter, and at the tourney at Harrenhal, a young 15-year-old Sir Jaime Lannister was admitted into the Order of the Kingsguard. But to set this tournament up, Sir Oswell Went of the Kingsguard, he kind of goes to Lord Walter Went, and he's sent, I believe, by Rhaegar to set this tourney up, and it may be a front for a conspiracy. So that's the short of it, if you will. And we're going to go in depth on that, but the whole tourney is a big front, and there's conspiring going on behind the scenes, and then something goes wrong.
Well, and one of the things I want to bring up, as we talked about again about kind of that Patreon series we started, a Show Watcher's Guide to the Books, you know, you and I had talked before season 8 about, okay, so we're going to get an ending. Whether it is the ending or not isn't necessarily important. What I was most excited for was some of the whys. And we got 0 of that.
Yeah.
We still have no idea as to why Rhaegar and Lyanna either ran off or whether she was kidnapped. You know, in the show, obviously, it's far more on they ran off together, but there's no explanation why.
Yeah, none
Is
at
it
all.
that they just loved each other? Because the books lead us to believe that, you know, we'll talk about it here when there's a line from the chapter, that's when all the smiles died.
That's right.
When
That's right.
Rhaegar crowns Lyanna Queen of Love and Beauty.
Yeah.
And does he do that because he just thinks she's beautiful? Does he do it, you know, just to make a scene?
Yeah.
And then does he, or, you know, I mean, people look as far as he needs 3 heads of the dragon. He needs to create the Song of Ice and Fire. So does he know about the White Walkers? There's so many questions about Rhaegar and Lyanna and the tourney of Harrenhal that the show didn't even get us. We didn't even get why Rhaegar and Lyanna fell in love.
No. Or did they fall in love? Right?
Did they? It doesn't. It doesn't entirely even say. It just they glance over it so briefly in the last season that all of those questions still exist and are, you know, we're just waiting for Gur to tell us in the books.
Yeah, exactly. So this is, I think it'll be important, and we'll talk more about it as we get into some of the chapter, but you just need to understand that it was the setup to all of this. It's sort of what, you know, kicks off, because after the tourney, we have Robert's Rebellion, essentially, starts up. We'll have a couple events that take place in between the tourney at Harrenhal and then Robert's Rebellion, but then from there, we're off and running. We're taking out the Mad King, and people are being beheaded, and there's a Tower of Joy, and it just gets there's so much that happens between the tourney at Harrenhal and the start of our story, or even just the ending of Robert's Rebellion. That so much mystery that we don't know about, that we have to kind of speculate on. So I think, and that's what he's done so well, is when new characters come in to our story. That's why I'm hoping in Winds of Winter, I guarantee you in Winds of Winter, we're going to have someone else reminiscing about the tourney at Harrenhal and starting to give us more clues, more answers. I just kind of believe that's what's going to happen. Now, but again, George doesn't like to give you everything. He likes to leave stuff to the imagination and sort of leave enough clues to where you should be able to piece it together and figure out what motivations were there. You know, this secret go-between for Rhaegar, knowing that he's close to Oswell Went and that he's sending him to his elder brother at Harrenhal to set up this tourney and funding it, essentially, because it's so massive that House Went could not have funded this on their own.
Absolutely. Right.
You know?
Absolutely.
So things like that. But so yeah, there you go. Just a quick little Maester study. So tourney at Harrenhal 281. So
Yeah, stay tuned.
right.
All right, let's head on over to the reread. This week we are in Eddard 15. Last week we were in Sansa 5, where Sansa had attended Joffrey's first court session as king, and it did not go very well. No. Let's just say that. Right. The Hound is Barristan Selmy gets kicked out of the Kingsguard. The Hound is then his replacement on the Kingsguard. Jaime Lannister is now named the Lord Commander of the Kingsguard, and Sansa begs mercy for her father, which kind of sets up this chapter. But the last time we were with Eddard was after King Robert's death. He had convinced the small council to confirm him as protector of the realm. However, the council is interrupted by a summons to the throne room where King Joffrey demands oath and fealty. Queen Cersei destroys Robert's will, and Ned declares Joffrey has no right to the Iron Throne. Ned calls for the City Watch to seize Cersei and her children, but the Gold Cloaks instead kill Ned's men, and Littlefinger reveals his betrayal.
Man.
So this week, Eddard 15. Ned is visited by the Black cells by Varys, who brings him news. He urges Ned to admit treason, command Robb to lay down his sword, and denounce Stannis and Renly. When Eddard states that his life is not worth forsaking his honor, Varys tells him that Cersei has Sansa, whose life is also at stake.
Yeah, I mean, this is a good one. We said this is a good one.
This is a really good chapter. There's a lot of fever dreams in here. There is a lot of good insight to Varys' character and Ned's character. So, as always, I like to read about the first paragraph. So, the straw on the floor stank of urine. There was no window, no bed, not even a slop bucket. He remembered walls of pale red stone, festooned with patches of niter, a gray door of splintered wood, 4 inches thick and studded with iron. He had seen them, briefly a quick glimpse as they shoved him inside. Once the door had slammed shut, he had seen no more. The dark was absolute. He had as well been blind.
Well, let's be honest. He was blind. Okay, to everything, to the Game of Thrones. When you play the Game of Thrones, you either live or you die, Sir Matt. And
yeah, that's
right. I mean, so that's what Cersei kind of says to him. I mean, I feel really bad for Eddard here because he lives by a code. He's one of these men who truly lives by this code and is not willing to bend or break it, or doesn't very often, I guess, if you will. And it can get you in trouble. I mean, he's predictable. Cersei can outplay him because of that, because she knows what he's going to do, so she can plan ahead. And that's the downfall of these northern men. It's actually what's so ironic about his son, the young wolf, which we'll talk about later, is that he is not predictable. He's very unpredictable, and he does some risky things, and he's able to outmaneuver the lion. So kind of maybe the son is learning that I don't know, you have to be sort of non-traditional, I guess, in a sense to combat some of these Lannister folk, because he's totally outmaneuvered. He's like cursing these men, right? While he's down here in the dungeons.
Yeah, because he just has a lot of time to think, and so that's what he does. It talks about like hours turned into days and things like that, and he still has his leg is still injured too. So keep that in mind. He's still in quite a lot of pain as he lays down there, and he starts thinking of people. He thinks of Cat, he thinks of Robb, and he thinks of Cersei. He thinks about all of it, but he ends up thinking about Robert. He has kind of this dream where he's actually speaking to Robert, and he's talking about how he failed him. And too proud to listen. Can you eat your pride, Stark? Will honor shield your children? Cracks ran down his face, fissures opening in the flesh, and he reached up and ripped the mask away. It was not Robert at all. It was Littlefinger grinning, mocking him. And so he's just having these dreams or visions here. Yeah,
and that's the thing. Someone later on, I think it's Varys says, "Why didn't you play along? Why couldn't you just play along with Littlefinger's his advice, which was to play the game?" I mean, he told him to play along with Cersei. But he can't.
Even Littlefinger begs him to play along. Even Cersei begs him to play along at one point.
Yep. Because I think really what they don't want war. I mean, Cersei doesn't want war. I mean, she's already got the throne. She has her son sitting there. She's gotten rid of Robert. She's done all this stuff in the shadows with Littlefinger and all the conniving. So why, she wants a stable north, and she wants them to stay up in the north and stay away and just bend the knee.
Well, Varys, when he comes in and talks to Ned later, he talks about. Actually, I have the line highlighted here. Oh, sorry, a different one. So here's Cersei's nightmare. While her father and brother spend their power battling Starks and Tullys, Lord Stannis will land, proclaim himself king, and lop off her son's curly blonde head and her own in the bargain. Though I truly believe she cares more about the boy. Stannis Baratheon is Robert's true heir, Ned said. The throne is his by right. I would welcome his ascent.
Yep. Yeah. Wow. So, I mean, again, he's remorseful in this, and he sees several people, as you say. You mentioned Robert. He's sees him. He curses all of these different people: Janos Slynt, the Gold Cloaks, the Queen, Kingslayer, Pycelle, Varys. Even Sir Barristan gets a curse in there, which is nuts. Although I have to say, Sir Barristan, I don't think had much to do with any of this. But yeah, let's move on here to where he has this. He tells Robert that he hid the truth from him, and that he lied, and that he failed him. I thought that was interesting because we talk about how I kind of rephrased it earlier when I said that he lives by this code and always lives by this code. He I don't know, he does lie. He is able to bend and distort the truth and keep promises. And by keeping a promise, then you have to tell a lie. That's the whole thing. That's the whole bit that he's in with Lyanna and Jon and what have you. So I failed you. Yeah, I failed you, Robert. He could not say the words, I lied to you, hid the truth, I let them kill you. And the king's going back and forth with him, calling him a stiff-necked fool and what have you. And it's just, that part is just, it's interesting because you talk about his character, right? And we always think he's super honorable. He would never lie, but he does that little, instead of telling King Robert on his deathbed that these children are not yours, that might have sparked a little bit more life in him to make a few maneuvers, the king's orders, and call the council into the room and straighten things out. So I don't know, because his brother was still there at the time. Renly was still there. There was still a chance for that. But then Ned tries to spare him of that pain and that hurt while he's on his deathbed. And he does the little, I'll protect your trueborn, your children or heirs or what have you. So, just interesting.
So, okay, I think we should go ahead and get to the dream he has. I'm going to read quite a. It's not a super long passage, but just I feel like it just needs to be read. He could no longer tell the difference between walking and sleeping. The memory came creeping upon him in the darkness, as vivid as a dream. It was the year of the fall spring, and he was 18 again, down from the Eyrie to the tourney at Harrenhal. He could see the deep green of the grass and smell the pollen on the wind, warm days and cool nights, and the sweet taste of wine. He remembered Brandon's laughter, Robert's berserk valor in the melee, and the way he laughed as he unhorsed men left and right. He remembered Jaime Lannister, a golden youth in scaled white armor, kneeling on the grass in front of the king's pavilion and making his vows to protect and defend King Aerys. Afterwards, Sir Oswald went to help Jaime to his feet, and the White Bull himself, Lord Commander Gerald Hightower, fastened the snowy cloak of the Kingsguard about his shoulders. All 6 white swords were there to welcome the newest brother. Yet when the jousting began, the day belonged to Rhaegar Targaryen, the crown prince who wore the armor he would die in, gleaming black plate with the three-headed dragon of his house wrought in rubies on the breast. A plume of scarlet silk streamed behind him when he rode, and it seemed no lance could touch him. Brandon fell to him, and the bronze Jon Royce, and even the splendid Sir Arthur Dayne, the sword of the morning. Robert had been jesting with Jon and old Lord Hunter as the prince circled the field, and after unhorsing Sir Barristan in the final tilt to claim the champion's crown, Ned remembered the moment when all the smiles died, when Prince Rhaegar Targaryen urged his horse past his own wife, the Dornish princess Elia Martell, to lay the Queen of Beauty's laurel in Lyanna's lap. He could still see it, a crown of winter roses blue as frost. Ned Stark reached out his hand to grasp the flowery crown, but beneath the pale blue petals, the thorns lay hidden. He felt them crawling at his skin, sharp and cruel, saw the slow trickle of blood run down his fingers, and woke trembling in the dark. Promise me, Ned. His sister had whispered from her bed of blood. She had loved the scent of winter roses. Gods save me, Ned wept. I am going mad. And the gods did not answer.
No, they did not, my friend. They did not answer. Why does he do it? I want to mention something real quick. So he rode right past Elia Martell and giving in crowning Lyanna the Queen of Love and Beauty. And we had mentioned earlier, like, needing 3 heads to the dragon. And I just want to note this for everyone, that Elia Martell could no longer bear children after her last son. And so it was sort of, she was so weak and had handmaidens around her like Ashara Dane, and was not able to bear any more children. So that could have been one of the reasons, because I always ask the question, why? Why did he do it? And it's a memory that comes back to Eddard. So it makes me think, he's the one he's thinking about it. Who else is thinking about this tourney? Are people? Is this something that many folks are thinking about? Throughout the series, and we do have others, but it's just really interesting, isn't it? And first of all, Rhaegar's a boss with the lance. He's tearing people up, which is fantastic. But Jaime Lannister is given this white cloak, and it's a cool scene, man. It's a really cool scene. And he's also in a fever dream. So, I think when you first read this, you wonder, can we trust everything that's being said to us here when you first go through it? But then as we go along, we learn more and more details, and it becomes clear that this is the sequence of events. This is what we have to go off of anyways.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and what's interesting is that the last time we think about Lyanna is, at least the last time we think about her with Ned is when he is riding right through the storm before he gets attacked by Jaime Lannister.
Uh-huh.
And so it's just a lot of this tourney at Harrenhal, a lot of Lyanna we get through Ned in kind of these thoughts and memories at very specific times. And so this is one where he's in pain, he's thinking a lot about Robert, and so he starts thinking about kind of the past and history and his family. And so he's thinking about Lyanna, and he's also thinking about Rhaegar. And so it's just really interesting that a lot of people make that connection of, like, a lot of the times Ned thinks about Lyanna, he also thinks about Rhaegar.
Mm-hmm.
And so, at this point with the show, air quote confirming R plus L equals J, I think it's just important to note, though, that Gur was kind of hinting at this all the way back in book 1.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah, he was. So hard to kind of go against it, and I think what the show misses out on is what you say, what we said at the top of the show here of our show, the why mention it? Why is there such a strong connection? Why does Eddard think of these two characters together with the Promise Me Ned right afterwards? Because that's the next bit, too, is that the two memories are kind of put together. She's later in a bed of blood. She was crowned the Queen of Love and Beauty, and then later on, we get a little nugget here about the Tower of Joy, right? So there's that. And actually, he kind of did it in reverse order, didn't he? So when I think about this book, we first get some of that Tower of Joy stuff before. That's what you just mentioned, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah, and then you get sort of before the Tower of Joy, you've got the tourney at Harrenhal now, and you're getting some of the, oh wow, he crowned her the Queen of Love and Beauty, and then later on, she's asking Ned to make this promise. So when you try to put the two together, that's the kind of thing that George does, is he really makes you pay attention to the sequence of events. He might give you the second part, then go back and give you the first, then give you the fourth, and then give you the third. It's crazy. That's why we kind of know. We've studied all the way up through A Dance of Dragons and even into Winds now, so we kind of understand these events. But when they're first coming out, you can see how complex this is, right? So
yeah.
Don't want to take away from that.
Oh, absolutely. And it's not just that. It's also, something that the show misses out on, as you said, is the kind of the significance of it. I just find it difficult to believe that Gur would hint at the importance of Rhaegar and Lyanna only to have it just be a reason for Daenerys to get upset in the final chapters of the story. I think it'll be much more significant in the books.
Yeah. Another thing I wanted to mention too here is I love talking about the Kingsguard, and I love the fact that Jaime Lannister is mentioned among these greats. So left over, as far as Kingsguard members, you have Sir Jaime Lannister and Sir Barristan Selmy. And you found out in that last chapter how much Sir Barristan, the disdain that he had for Jaime Lannister for breaking his vows. And I just have a quick little, because I was doing a little research for some of our stuff coming up later. Barristan later on in the Dance of Dragons will say that he actually found it hard to keep his vows as well. Once he gets away from King's Landing and he's with Dany, he starts to kind of reveal that it was harder and harder for the Kingsguard to keep their vows to the Mad King. And that's why, so a lot of people will say, well, Jaime's the one who betrayed his king and killed him. If we go off of this tourney at Harrenhal, if Oswald went and these other guys, Sir Arthur Dayne, were helping Prince Rhaegar to overthrow his father, then they're all kind of breaking their vow in a sense.
Yeah, they're all accountable.
Exactly. So, I just think it's interesting because that's something that Barristan, it starts to grow on him more and more. He wasn't necessarily in that inner circle as much as Sir Arthur Dayne and Gerald Hightower and the others were, but yeah, so he starts to kind of see that. But it's just amazing because these are the glory days. These are some of the best, and Jaime was there. And it's cool later on in the series and even in the show to watch him reminisce about these characters and to see how epic Barristan is. And you just don't have that same caliber of knight, so it makes them stand out that much more. Brienne of Tarth is one of the characters, one of the new characters who you could see rising to the likes of Sir Barristan and having that honor and having that good moral compass and everything. It's just fantastic. So,
well, doesn't correct me if I'm wrong, but when Barristan Selmy is in the books having his conversation with Dany about the tourney at Harrenhal, he talks about losing to Rhaegar because she's asking about Rhaegar and him fighting in tournaments. And correct me if I'm mistaken, Sir Ezra, but doesn't he talk about in losing to Rhaegar, if I had been more honorable that day? Not if I had been a better jouster, but if I had been more honorable.
Yep, I think you're right.
He would have maybe he would have beaten Rhaegar, and then none of this would have ever happened.
Right, exactly. And I'll just go ahead and read the one part that I had here as well, because I think it's really interesting. Yeah, so he starts to question, and that makes you think, Sir Matt, that was he supposed to... Okay, because we kind of gloss over Rhaegar Targaryen unhorses Sir Arthur Dayne. Okay, we can't talk to Sir Arthur Dayne. We don't have him here to tell us that he let himself be unhorsed, but it seems like from Sir Barristan that maybe that's what the Kingsguard did, right?
Absolutely.
And so that's something that I think he kind of struggles with. So yeah, that's a really good point. So later on in the Dance of Dragons, he says this. He says he had sworn his vows before the eyes of gods and men, and he could not in honor go against them. But the keeping of those vows had grown hard in the last years of King Aerys' reign. He had seen things that pained him to recall, and more than once he wondered how much of the blood was on his own hands if he had not gone into Duskendale, which we talked about. We talked about House Hollard, and we talked about Duskendale, and how he went in there to rescue Aerys. So he said if he hadn't gone there to rescue Aerys from Lord Darkland's dungeons, the king might well have died there, as Tywin Lannister sacked the town. Then Prince Rhaegar would have ascended to the Iron Throne, mayhaps to heal the realm. So Barristan's even questioning himself, what if I wouldn't have done anything? And so all of these little nuggets lead you to believe that there was a major issue with the Mad King. And if we go off the show and you find that Dany, if she does become the Mad Queen, if you have a lot of characters like Barristan around saying, guys, I wish I would have done more in regards to the Mad King, and now I see a Mad Queen starting to emerge, I could then see why they would want to do what they're going to do. Does that make sense? I could see
Absolutely.
Yeah, more of those people kind of saying, okay, holy crap, we should have done more for Prince Rhaegar. We should have helped him. It would have been breaking our vows. It would have been dishonorable, but the realm would not have suffered as less. And that's the cool thing about this chapter, is that Varys is, he's for the realm. Whatever is good for the realm, that's what he's seeking. So, yeah, I mean, that's sort of what Barristan is struggling with, and maybe that's the same thing Jaime had struggled with, too. It's like, wait a second. I mean, he's the newest member, and if the Mad King truly was going to burn the city and destroy all of those people, kill innocent lives, and he saved them by killing the king, then he's a true hero, even though he's broken his vows. It's just that's the spot that George puts us in. It's wild. I love it. So, okay.
Yeah, I'm trying to find that Barristan Selmy quote here. I know it's something we're going to be talking about in our mega theory.
Yeah, we'll have to.
So I'm just I'll just tease a little bit of it because I have it here.
Sure.
So certainly it says talking about possibly a conspiracy going on at the tourney. Surely Barristan wouldn't let Rhaegar win, would he? Not willingly, but he certainly would if he was commanded to. And it seems to have a strange awareness that Rhaegar and Arthur Dayne were perhaps up to something in this tournament that he wasn't privy to. Because he says, if I had been a better knight, if I had unhorsed the prince in the last tilt, as I unhorsed so many others, it would have been for me to choose the Queen of Love and Beauty. A Dance with Dragons, chapter 57, Barristan Selmy.
Wow. Yeah.
Well, it may not be a Barristan Selmy chapter, but that's his quote. Chapter 57 is probably a Dany chapter.
Uh-huh. Yeah. Wow. Oh, that's something. That's something. If I had been a better knight, yeah. So there you go.
Right. If I had been a better knight, he doesn't say if I'd been better at jousting.
Right.
If I had been a better knight.
Right. That's crazy. That's crazy to think about. So that's why there's so much attention given to it, and that's why we're going to do the 4-part series. Plain and simple.
Yeah.
Plain
essentially.
Yeah. Okay. All right, cool. So let's move on a bit here because we do have another major character who shows up. We've got the Turnkey, who turns out to be Lord Varys, right? He's in disguise. And, I mean, Eddard is starting to think, are they going to... He only had water for the longest time, and he's like, are they trying to kill me? You know, if they wanted me dead, why wouldn't they kill me? And, you know, he's holding on to the hope that Tyrion Lannister is still captured by Catelyn Tully, by Catelyn Stark, but she's gone. We know she's gone. And he finds out in this chapter from Varys that, no, your life is not safe right now.
Yeah.
Although,
not only do they have Tyrion, they also have Sansa. So
Exactly. So now the young wolf is moving, and again, Cersei doesn't want the fight. She wants everyone to bend the knee, just accept this and let's move on. And it'll be kind of this, little shadow or whatever. But, Eddard is, when he's cursing these people, and he tells Varys, it's treason. They betrayed my friend Robert, and they crippled my son. And now they're threatening my daughter. You know what I mean? It's a lot for him to kind of stomach and say, and he says, my life is not worth, he's like, whatever, my life's not worth it. And that's where we'll get to the part where he kind of says, well, what about Sansa? We have Sansa. So, but
and I think he learns a lot about the Game of Thrones here.
You're right.
Because he realizes he's lost, I think, and that they have it. And, Varys is basically talking a lot about, we get a lot of insight about Varys and who he really serves. And this is where we start to get that I serve the realm. I want peace. I think that, coming from nothing, I've seen the power that these noble lords have, and it doesn't really do anything good for the people. And while the Game of Thrones is being played, it's the lives of the innocent who suffer.
Yep.
He talks about Cersei's nightmare, as I mentioned earlier, is the one true king, Stannis Baratheon, laying siege to King's Landing. Well, that's great for them, but what does that do for the innocent people?
Mm-hmm. Right. And that's a good point. He's even trying to level here a little bit with Eddard, because he says he gives him, he wants more information on who killed Robert. He kind of believes that he was killed, and he remember when Varys hands him the wineskin, he thinks it's poisoned because he's almost probably thinking before Robert died that someone put something in his wine. The wine was too strong or something. And indeed, he is drinking strong wine here, but Varys takes a big swig from it first, just to let him know that that's not it. But he says, he does kind of confirm that Cersei, indeed, Cersei gave him the wineskin and told him it was Robert's favorite vintage. A hunter lives a perilous life. If the boar had not done for Robert, it would have been a fall from a horse, a bite of the wood adder, an arrow gone astray. The forest, is basically perilous. And so they were trying to do him in. So he kind of gives Eddard that and says, but really you wouldn't give that to someone unless he's truly lost. There is no way out here, and he's trying to help him see that. Like, you can help end this by confessing your crimes. I think he even says later that Cersei will be the next person to come see him and is going to want, maybe will offer him this bargain, if you will.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely.
So, okay. Oh, here's a good part. Yeah. So Cersei is frightened of you, my lord, but she has other enemies she fears even more. Her beloved Jaime is fighting the river lords even now. Lysa Arryn sits in the Eyrie, ringed in stone and steel, and there is no love lost between her and the queen. In Dorne, the Martells still brood on the murder of Princess Elia and her babes, and now your son marches down the neck with a northern host at his back. So she has a piece to play here with Eddard. That's the offering. I have him, and let's make peace, really, is what she's hoping. And if she can do that, and if she can somehow win the loyalty of the Starks and kind of have a loose alliance, if you will, then we're going to be okay. Because the last thing they want is for Dorne to, go back to what Dorne used to be in the days of Aegon the Conqueror, right? And not what are their words again? Unbowed, unbent, unbroken, and so back to raiding, and they hate the Lannisters. I mean, they hate them.
Absolutely.
Right? We see that later on, but just because of the treatment of their princess. So.
Yeah, and so when Varys starts talking a little bit about Sansa, that they have your child, Ned pleads no. Gods have mercy. And he says Rhaenys was a child too, Prince Rhaegar's daughter. And then this is, that in itself is important, but this is how, for the people who are just coming in from the show, this is how literally important every line is in the books. He starts talking about a cat, and it's a handful of lines, but there are literally so many theories about this cat, and they all stem from like this one, few lines here, right? She had a black kitten she called Balerion. Did you know? I always wondered what happened to him. Rhaenys liked to pretend that he was the true Balerion, the black dread of old, but I imagine the Lannisters taught her the difference between a kitten and a dragon quick enough. And so, but just those like three lines about Balerion the Black Dread and this cat, right? It's the same cat that Tommen sees, and it's the same cat that's running around. And there are people that have theorized that people have warged into that cat and all this stuff. But it just shows you that, every line in the books is so important. Yeah, because this is the kind of ultra deep weaving that Gur does.
Well, when I was originally doing my Rhaenys being the Sphinx sort of theory, which, by the way, I'm going to go ahead and post on Patreon as a blog. I just thought I would do that, even though George has come out and the So Spake George and So Spake Martin and said that Rhaenys is dead. He could be lying, and I had a lot of people send me messages saying, Sir Ezra, it could be, it still could be a thing. There's a lot of symbolism. There's a lot of imagery of cats surrounding the Sphinx. Anyways, I was thinking of that. So that is the layer that he adds into to some of his writing. So I don't know, man. It just had me thinking so much about those young kids and whether they lived. And then, as you say, did someone warg into this? Did someone skin change into this cat? And we're told later on that cats are super hard to skin change into, and that we're recommended by Varamir not to skin change into cats just because of their nature, right? I don't know, man. Is Balerion the cat Azor Ahai? It's the question that keeps me up at night, right?
So that's a good question.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
So and then I just like the last line of the chapter here, where Varys is just saying, "The choice, my dear Lord Hand, is entirely yours."
Mm-hmm. Yeah, entirely yours. It's tough. So, basically he has to either confess that he is a traitor and that Joffrey is the one true king, or they're going to, Sansa there could be an accident where she is killed. And another thing that they're worried about, Eddard thinks about this in the beginning of the chapter, that Robert's brothers, Stannis and Renly, he doesn't know that they're at odds with each other. He thinks they're going to be mounting a force, and they will be on, raiding or they will be at the gates of King's Landing before anyone else. He thinks they'll be there first. So yeah, in all of that confusion and in that time of war, Sansa could be lost. And that's sort of what Varys is trying to play at here with him. So he has to make that confession or risk losing his daughter, which is tough. That's what breaks him. So
yeah, absolutely.
Okay, awesome. So yeah, it's a little bit of a shorter chapter, but some really cool stuff about the tourney at Harrenhal, and I think you just get some of the depth of the Game of Thrones and the consequences of it, which is very important moving forward, because every choice you make, the choice, my dear Lord Hand, is entirely yours. All of our characters face these really interesting choices, and they have major consequences, whether it be for themselves or for a whole region or what have you. But it's kind of a theme that plays out in the next several books. So,
Okay.
All right.
Well, Sir Ezra, I think we have some ravens to discuss here. So I'll go ahead and read this first one here. This is from Travis. He sends us a lot of stuff on Instagram. With all the rumors about George being done with Winds of Winter, it made me start thinking, and I was wondering what you guys think. Do you guys think Jon's parentage will be revealed in Winds of Winter, or do you think George will tease us further and wait for a dream of spring and finally tell us?
Wow, I think if he does, I think it's going to be like one of the last things in the book. I think it'll be one of the very last things in Winds of Winter going into this next book.
Yeah, I think it could happen similarly with a Bran vision.
Mm-hmm.
I also don't think that Jon Snow himself will find out until A Dream for Spring.
Okay. Yeah, that we the reader may know, and we're getting clued in, and we may know more than our character. Okay, based on what other characters in the series know. Yeah, that would be suspenseful and interesting. I still just, when we were talking about season 8, and we wanted to know, like, okay, cool, if we the audience can we get it. We trust Bran. We know that Bran is having these visions, but who is going to trust him? Dany surely doesn't. She was like, so basically you heard this from Sam and you heard it from Bran, your best friend and your brother. They've told you this. Like, what other evidence is going to be there to convince the realm? Which makes you think, ultimately in season 8, did it matter? It mattered in that it turned Dany kind of mad and it turned her kind of crazy. So if she really does like Jon and she thinks he has a better claim to the throne, which, I don't know. Which, by the way, if that's the way it goes down, and Jon has a better claim than Dany, and then that would tell me that this young Griff character is dead before that happens, and something happens there, because he would have the best claim, or he is actually found out to be a false dragon. So I think that'll take place first. But yeah, man, I there's got to be way more. There has to be a Hallan Reed situation. There has to be another character who was there. Who can attest to these things. Or, again, we've talked about who sent Eddard Stark to the Tower of Joy. Whoever sent him there, however he got that information, that person was in King's Landing. And I think of Varys, and I think of other people who may know the true identity of Jon Snow, or just at least know that, I don't know. I mean, again... Like, we may know that Lyanna is his mother, but then you've got to make the connection to Rhaegar. It's going to be a lot. It's still a lot to kind of figure out, So, be interesting. But to point blank, I think we'll get it right at the ends of Winds of Winter, and whether John knows it or not, it'd be kind of neat if we know and he doesn't beforehand. But I think hopefully by the last chapter of the book in Winds of Winter he'll know, or right at the very beginning of the first book, so he can kind of have time to deal with that, if you will. So yeah.
Do you think it will go down like with Sam learning it simultaneously? Kind of the way Sam kind of oddly learns some information about it.
I think the whole there being an annulment between Elia Martell and Rhaegar in the show, I think that is going to happen in the books, right? They wouldn't just make that up, because that's something in the histories. That's a flashback before the series starts. I feel like that's information you have to get from the author, right? So yeah, I think he's going to figure that out while he's here, while he's down in Old Town at the Citadel. He'll come across that, and it may just be like it is in the show that he doesn't quite know what it means. Okay, so what? Rhaegar left Elia Martell. Yeah, we kind of figured that there was something going on, because clearly he passed her over for Lyanna Stark to be the Queen of Love and Beauty. Yeah, I mean that's going to happen. But then, just because are we going to see a secret marriage? You know what I mean? Because that's my thing. If there's an annulment between Elia Martell, then was there a marriage between Lyanna and Rhaegar? Was there an official marriage? Like, does that make Jon legitimate, or is he still a bastard? Is he still bastard born of Rhaegar Targaryens? Does that make sense?
Well, if Lyanna, if they would have to be married.
That's what I'm saying. In the show, we see, like, we get a shot of that, right? We get what looks like a ceremony, but then Sam just has the line from the text that says that there was an annulment between Rhaegar and his first wife. Well, we would need to see...
But they were wed in a secret ceremony.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. So we would need to... In the books, we would need all of that as well. So
I see what you're saying, yeah.
Yeah, we would need both pieces. Where do we get that... In the show, where did we get that piece that they were wed in a secret ceremony? Did Sam tell us that?
Bran sees it.
Okay, again, so there you go. So you've got Sam who sees an annulment, and then Bran sees a marriage. So yeah, you put the two together, it works, but it goes back to what Dany says, which is these are your, this is your brother and your best friend. It's just really, that's why I think you need a third person like Howland Reed, or you need like someone like Varys who says, yeah, hey, here was Rhaegar's plan. Here's the, the gist of it. He felt like he believed in the prophecy to the point where he needed a third head of the dragon. So he sought out Lyanna, and maybe that came about because she was the Knight of the Laughing Tree. Who knows? And his plan, maybe it changed. I don't know that he went to the tourney at Harrenhal thinking he was going to see Lyanna Stark and marry her. You know what I mean? I don't know. We'd have to. We'll get there when we get into the Patreon series. I know Sir Matt and I are going to do some major heavy digging there, right? But so when I talk about a curveball that happens at the tourney at Harrenhal, I think it's her. I think it's the Knight of the Laughing Tree. It's the Howland Reed experience. It's the thing that Rhaegar didn't expect, and he maybe gets almost derailed from his whole conspiracy to pursue this prophecy, or to fall in love with the she-wolf. So, but yeah, I just think you need another person besides Sam and Bran. So who's that going to be?
I think we'll get that Howland Reed.
Yeah, I hope. I want to hear from Howland Reed for sure, because I actually think Jojen was deceived in a sense, and I think there's a lot of deceiving going on with the Three-Eyed Crow, quite frankly. So there's still a lot more to happen. One of the most important chapters in Winds of Winter is going to be that very first Bran chapter.
Oh, absolutely.
Because Jojen has been foreseeing his death. They're gone. They're right there. They're missing right at the. I haven't read all the Winds of Winter chapters. There's not one on Bran, is there? Let me check.
No.
Okay. it's like holy smokes. Because I feel like that's where we're gonna get a crap ton of answers here. Yeah. Anyways, okay. So yeah, that's just kind of my thoughts. Do you have any? I don't know. I mean, how do you think it's gonna go down, Sir Matt?
Oh, I mean, I already kind of said it. I think it's gonna be. I think we'll get either a Bran flashback, and then I think Howland Reed will be more important. I think it'll be more prevalent in telling the story.
Do you think the realm will believe that, though, or does it even matter?
Yes.
Okay.
I think they will.
You think they'll believe Howland Reed and Samwell and Bran?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, I do.
When do you think that will be shared? We're kind of speculating here a little bit. When would that be shared with the realm? Is it shared to Jon first? How do all those pieces come together?
Well, see, I think that it's going to be flipped in the books. I think that the Night King, or there isn't really a Night King character in the books yet, because I do think they're just going to have. Right now, it's just the others, but I do think that there will be just a one White Walker thing. You kill this one, you kill all of them. He's kind of their leader character.
Mm-hmm.
Whether we get flashbacks of him being like the first one created by the children, all that stuff, I don't know. But I do think obviously the others are an issue they're going to have to deal with at some point. I think that's where I think the difference of, and I talked a lot about this in my the episode I did on Patreon, the Musing.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that Daenerys' invasion is going to happen, and it's going to have much more to do with young Griff's invasion.
Mm-hmm.
I think that they will kind of go together, and I think Cersei may get removed from power a lot earlier. I don't know if Cersei is going to get put off, or perhaps maybe it's not that Euron connection, right? It's Cersei and young Griff.
Okay. Yeah.
Teaming up.
Yeah, that could be. Maybe even that
because we find out that he is a false dragon and he needs some legitimacy, so he gets kind of betrothed in an odd way to Cersei, even though she's much older than him, just so Cersei can kind of hold off Daenerys. And then I do think that I still think more in the books you have that Jon Daenerys team up.
Mm-hmm. Okay. At Winterfell, kind of like
maybe it goes. I still think though that maybe they fight off and they take the throne, and then you have to deal with the others.
Yeah, man.
Because
so
even if it ends with Bran being king, I talked all about this in that musing, because a lot of it you got to read the original script, the original plan, that certain things have to happen in a certain order to have them tie into kind of what the original idea was.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Well, everyone should go check that out then. Yeah, because I think it's way more complicated, right? You've got Euron.
There's way more moving pieces.
Victarion, he's out there trying to pursue Dany, and yeah. So that'll be. I think that's the cool part too for us who read the books. It's like we want to know which of those characters fill the roles that we saw in the show, and what depth can be added there. So yeah. Okay. Awesome. All right. So let's move on here. We've got Maglum, the Westward warlock here. So we haven't. We will be hearing from him. Actually, we moved Raven's Nest, by the way, friends. We moved that to what is that? June 29th, I think.
Yes, Saturday, June 29th, 8:00 Eastern Standard Time.
Okay. Yeah, and he typically joins us, and we're gonna have some rapid fire thoughts on season 8, and just maybe we'll get into some of this conversation about the books and get into some speculation on wins and the last two books, and see how some of our characters could fulfill the roles, or the play a role in the events that we see in season 8. So, all right, here we go. As I've said before, I'm a big fan of Daenerys being the central hero of Game of Thrones or A Song of Ice and Fire. I like her narrative, her journey, and her struggles. I feel like she learned how to be a better leader through time and grew greatly. So naturally, I was incredibly disappointed with her ending and what happened to her character. However, rather than dwelling on unhappiness, I figured it would be best to instead try and discern the cause of her madness, assuming she is insane by the end, because I need to figure out how a woman who was horrified at the thought of her dragons killing a single innocent child to the point where she locked 2 of them underground could go to being someone happy enough to destroy a city and wholeheartedly believe in doing so she freed the people from tyranny. Now, based on Tyrion's analysis in episode 6, it was because Dany sort of built up an idea of herself as a savior when she would do brutal things to punish terrible people and save the innocent, which led her to viewing herself as always being in the right no matter what. I don't think this fully explains the behavior. However, if she had gone and I don't know, publicly burned Cersei and all the lords allied with her, I could believe that as a logical step. However, in the past, she would normally only eliminate the people directly responsible for wrongs and was never above mercy, like when she defeated the slaver army attacking Marine, then killed the 2 commanders who sold out the 3rd. In short, she always goes for those at the top of the ladder because she does not accept that people can be powerless and used. Because she does accept that people can be powerless and used. Varys suggested that she built up some grand destiny in her head, that she was to be a divine savior. She brought back the dragons, she walked into flames and lived. She accrued these title after title, and with each her legend and ego grew. This I could believe to a degree, but it's not that well represented. In the show, for 90% of the time, she is a benevolent savior, and then right at the end, suddenly her character did a 180 and became a power-hungry maniac. If the transformation was gradual, I could believe Varys' assessment, but it isn't. My idea is that Dany's is still somewhat childish when she is hurt. She lashes back twice as hard. Look at Varys, for example. He abused her for years, and she cared for him. But once she reached a certain... Viserys, excuse me. So Viserys, for example, had abused her for years, and she cared for him. But once she reached a certain point, and he threatened her child, she had no problem letting him die. This is a pattern repeated again and again against Mir Mazdur, against the warlocks, and against the slavers in Marine. When she views someone under her protection, especially her children, as being threatened, she becomes merciless. When she arrived in Westeros, she was counseled against taking King's Landing immediately because too many people would be hurt, so she didn't. In doing so, 2 of her children died. She lost 2 of her oldest and dearest friends, Jorah and Missandei. Yet when she finally did attack the city, she took it easily, even just with Drogon. Prior to her burning spree, hardly any civilians were harmed, and she easily took power. When the bells rung and Cersei surrendered, Daenerys realized that she could have done this all along. So yeah, if she wouldn't, she basically was given the advice to not take the city because innocent lives would have been killed. And then here, after she's done it, no lives were taken, and she lost all of these other people. Why the heck did she wait? Is essentially what I'm getting from this. She could have gotten her throne far more easily if she had acted earlier. Even she wouldn't have lost 2 of her children, and Missandei at least would still be alive. Her rage was at her mistakes. It was at how her mercy had only harmed those she cared for, and she wanted everyone else to feel the same pain. She took vengeance with fire and blood, or at least that's my interpretation. I'd be interested in hearing what anyone else thinks. P.S. I know this might seem controversial, might seem or be a controversial thought for some, but I think the ending Jon got was likely the happiest ending he could get. Amongst no other group in Westeros has he felt as accepted and at home as amongst the free folk. He was able to reunite with 2 close friends, Tormund and Ghost, and stay somewhere where his name and his blood mean nothing, and he will never be forced into a position of being king, something he clearly doesn't want. Despite how broody he looks at the end, I would say it's a pretty positive outcome for him, except for the second dead lover. That puts a damper on things. Truth cuts deepest. Maglum, the Westward Warlock. So, wow, well thought out. Good response there. I like sort of the interpretation of Dany's shift or 180, if you will, into this madness. Some people have argued that. I think Sir Matt and I have suggested that if there were more time, if there were an extra episode or even several episodes a season, if you will, they could have showed more of that. And I think there will be more of that. I think we talked about the complexities associated with characters like young Griff and other Blackfire / Targaryen characters that could cause her to. Things are more complex in Westeros than they are in Essos. And where we've seen her in Essos, it seems to be not black and white, but it'll definitely get more complex for her. And I think that's the piece where she's going to start to kind of shift and change a bit.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, as always, Maglin providing with us with an excellent Raven, and I agree with him. She does. She hesitates quite a lot, and she when she should be a dragon, right?
Yeah,
as Queen of Thorns tells her, you're a dragon, be a dragon.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, so that's really good, and I think we'll see that. I'd be interested to hear more from him and from others on Dany and what happens at the end and Jon's outcome. So that's what we're going to be talking about on the 29th. So if you're interested in that, sign up at that Bannerman level tier, and your voice will be heard on the podcast. We love kind of bringing different people on. We had a few people in the Discord server. If you have questions about that or you need help getting on there, just shoot us a message and we'll try to give you some guidelines. It's pretty, they send you directions as soon as you sign up and stuff, so pay attention to your email when you do that. But yeah, we just didn't give it enough time, Sir Matt, so we thought we would give people a little more advanced notice, and then we'd get a really good...
we want as many people. It's also graduation season, and I know a lot of people were saying, I got graduation parties.
Yeah, vacations.
I got to go to, their kids are graduating and stuff like that. And so we said, we'll hold off. We want to make sure everyone gets an opportunity, and we announce it with enough times that people, hey, you guys are paying for a service, and we want to provide that service.
Yeah, so. It's so much fun just to have that conversation. And dude, we get such differing opinions, and I think it's what's great. It's awesome, just to hear the ways in which people would do it or what they think is going to happen in the books. We're still speculating. We can still speculate. The series is not finished, so that's what's a lot of fun about it. Okay,
All
my
right.
friend. Yeah.
Sir Ezra, I think that's it for today.
Yeah, man. It was a good episode. I enjoyed the chapter, and we had two really solid Ravens. I'm honestly looking forward to July. Will be the first month where we have the tourney at Harrenhal stuff. We've got some cool Green Dreams coming out with Lady Stoneheart, Young Griff, and Blood Raven. So yeah.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Well, please continue to send your ravens to us at btkcast@gmail.com. They can be about anything. They can be about the show. They can be about the books. They can be about the novellas, Dunk and Egg series, anything you have questions or comments on. Doesn't necessarily have to, now that we're back in the books, it doesn't have to be about the chapter we're on. Obviously, if they are, that's great, but please continue to send us those, and we will read as many of those on the air as we can. We know we unfortunately weren't able to get to everyone's during the season because we were just receiving so many, but now that's kind of slowed down a little bit. We're still getting a lot, but it seems certainly much more manageable now, so we want to make sure everyone who takes the time to write us one gets one in. And it can be as simple as, hey, what do you think about this character, or manifesto level theory as well. So please continue to send those. We really, really appreciate those.
Yep, absolutely.
Well, all right, it is time to say farewell. We want to thank you for playing the Game of Thrones. In our next episode, we will be discussing Chapter 59, Catelyn 9.
If you like our podcast, don't forget to subscribe, like us, write a review, or leave a comment, or send us a raven at btkcast@gmail.com.
We will see you in a week, and remember that winter is coming.